Okay, Brian Jonk joins me again. Thanks, Brian, for being here. We're talking again a little more technically about microdermabrasion and the marketplace. And, I think if you could take us through just sort of how, high capacity, low maintenance affects the buying decision, that would be great.
Sure, Eric. Well, one thing, as you're looking through the market at the different microdermabrasion devices, you'll notice, as I think I've mentioned in the past, that they come in all shapes and sizes. And one thing that's real important to look for when looking for a microdermabrasion device is the capacity of the system. Many of them, again, are smaller. If they're smaller, they generally have tiny little waste crystal canisters and tiny little clean crystal canisters. You'll see those generally on the side of the machines. And as a skincare professional, you make your money when you're doing procedures, not when you're servicing a machine, filling or emptying little crystal cartridges. That's even more important in a multi-user environment like a busy med spa or a day spa where there are lots of people that will be working on the same machine. Nobody wants to take responsibility for filling, emptying, and maintaining these things. So it's very important to keep your eyes open for the capacity and the way the device is made. So again, most microderms on the market come with clean and empty waste crystal canisters that are less than a pound of crystals. And one thing we talked about pump size in our last conversation, the crystal canister size, it's interesting, but it's got to be tied to that pump size because microdermabrasion machines, as we discussed, they draw vacuum through the machine to move those crystals. Well, if you have large or small crystal canisters, a smaller pump is able to create a vacuum quicker on those canisters and start drawing crystals. So pump size and capacity go hand in hand.
Got it. So let me just summarize real quick, maybe for our audience that might be new to the microdermabrasion concept or may not have seen a machine up close. There's many options, right? There's these desktop versions. There's the machines or devices that might be a little larger that sit on the floor. And then the way that the machine is constructed is you've got the pump and it is in fact connected to the canisters. And then there's two canisters that would be present on any microdermabrasion device, one that's inhaling the crystals through the tubing and then exhaling it into the other canister. Is that the correct way to think about it?
That is the way it works, absolutely.
Great. And so as we think about all the different devices that exist out there, when you have these smaller canisters, it likely represents a smaller pump size and vice versa, which is going to impact the flow of the crystals, the volume of the crystals, and the ultimate, result that you're going to get from applying those crystals across the skin surface.
Yes, and we covered a lot of those pump size issues and the performance issues in our last conversation. And today I sort of just wanted to cover some of the other things you may not think about. So if you have small crystal canisters, an average microdermabrasion procedure will take about 1/3 of a cup of crystals per procedure for a 20-minute procedure. Well, in many of the devices on the marketplace with these little canisters, you have to pour that 1/3 of a cup of crystals into the top of the canister every time it empties. And again, most of these canisters are less than a pound of crystals. So you end up having to do that once or twice after every 1 or 2 clients. Worse than that is that the waste crystal canister has to be emptied every 1 or 2 clients. And again, most of these little crystal canisters, what they'll have is a little plug on the bottom of the canister. You have to unscrew that plug and let the crystals with the bacteria and skin tissue and virus and everything else that might be contained there run from that canister into a waste receptacle. And every time you do that, those crystals are exposed to the air and they're put in the air, and you run the risk of yourself or your clients ingesting that material and or it covering the surfaces in your workroom.
Even worse, I suppose some of that stuff could be airborne and ultimately that wouldn't be good for anybody.
Not good for anybody, exactly. You don't even want to think about that. In addition to that, every time you have to unscrew or open these canisters, there's little O-rings and gaskets and other things that can go missing or wear out on your device. So you really, when you're looking for a microdermabrasion machine, you want to really look at that canister size. Think about the volume of microdermabrasion business you're going to be doing on a daily basis. And if you're planning on doing more than 1 or 2 treatments, you really want to focus on the capacity of the device so that you're working in a hygienic environment. You're not spending all your time cleaning and emptying waste crystal canisters.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. Now, as an engineer and as somebody that's been building these machines now for 20 years, and the Dermaglow machine, I presume you've addressed this matter with the Dermaglow. How does the Dermaglow differentiate or solve this problem?
Sure. Well, given the opportunity to see how machines were working on the marketplace, we did build the Dermaglow 2 from scratch. We were able to use a different system based on our larger pump size. We're able to use larger crystal capacity. The Dermaglow 2 actually comes with about 4 pounds of crystals. We were able to rethink the way those crystals were metered into the system. And we'll talk about that later with clogging problems and such.
Okay, that's really helpful, Brian. So let me just summarize real quick what I took from that, which I think you said it's about 1/3 of a pound per treatment and about an average of 1 pound capacity per canister on an average microdermabrasion device in the market. And so with that in mind, the Dermaglow and how you approached it is a little different. Take us through that.
Right, Eric. Well, given the opportunity to design the Dermaglow from scratch, we were able to take a much different approach to how it functioned. Remember in our conversation about the Dermaglow having a larger pump allowed us to create a system that used larger crystal canisters. So we designed the Dermaglow to accept an entire 4-pound bottle of crystals. Now that means you can do about 25 to 30 treatments from a bottle of crystals without having to replace it. In addition, instead of having to fill and empty little crystal cartridges, what we've done is created a system where you can just pop the top of our 4-pound crystal bottle, drop it in a receiver, and those crystals are automatically metered into the device. Again, so no pouring crystals from a large canister, 10-pound bucket into your microdermabrasion device. You're just opening up a 4-pound bottle of crystals, about a 32-ounce, think of a 32-ounce soda, dumping it in the receiver in the microdermabrasion device, doing your 30 procedures. And in the Dermaglow, instead of having a waste crystal canister that you have to open a little plug and drain the crystals through the air into the garbage, we actually have a HEPA filter bag inside of a vacuum canister, much like your vacuum cleaner at home. So the crystals move from the bottle, through the machine, through the handpiece, to the crystal canister, the waste crystal bag. When the bottle's empty, the bag is full, you take the bag out of the receiver and the Dermaglow and throw it in the trash. It keeps your environment safe and sanitary. And again, you're not having to mess with little plugs, crystal O-rings, and those type of things. So it's a much more efficient process.
Got it. Okay, so really there's probably 3 takeaways here. It's a safer way to administer the treatments without having anything go airborne. It's more efficient because you're going to have many more treatments that you can achieve through the higher volume of crystals capacity, and ultimately a happier client.
Exactly. So
great, Brian. That's really good technical information around how the concept of microdermabrasion actually works as it moves from the pump to the canister. And go ahead and maybe just wrap that up for us. And Brian, that was really a great technical overview of how the pump and the canisters are connected. Do you have a way that you want to wrap this up for our folks?
Well, Eric, I just say, as we started this, there's hundreds of different microdermabrasion devices in the market. They come in all shapes and sizes, but it really is some of the little things that you might not notice that make a big difference. And I think crystal capacity is one of the huge ones. The Dermaglow was designed from the ground up to minimize maintenance, to minimize the time you're spending carrying and feeding, filling and emptying it. That allows you more time, as I said at the beginning, to spend with your clients. And because of the way the Dermaglow is designed, it helps you maintain a hygienic environment. You're not filling and emptying these canisters into the air. And I think, again, it's, as a professional esthetician, you really need to look at the differences between the devices and make an informed decision.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's, I think, a wrap for today on this subject. So I think next time we're going to tee up, the issue of crystal flow and how that might affect clogging. So till next time, folks.